Good afternoon. I kind of thought about how I wanted to start this talk, but I guess the best way to start it is to say, I was dumb too. I was so dumb, I thought Reagan was doing a good job when I got started. I was your typical mother. I moved to a small suburban town at that time. I wanted nothing to do with my children's education besides pat them on the head, put them on the bus, and see them when they came home. And I had a very brief honeymoon period before our school committee voted in a change agent superintendent. That was number one. Number two, he sent a note out to all the parents saying he was implementing outcome-based education in the district, and he was sending the teachers to Johnson City. That still didn't faze me that much. The third thing was he had the school committee vote on turning us into a regional training center for the federal government. That raised my eyes a bit. But when they put my eldest daughter into an experimental class without my knowledge or consent, and some of these things that have been talked about today started coming home, I got very angry. They were messing with my kids now, and I didn't like that. And I became angry, and other parents became angry, and we formed a concerned parents group. We would have called it Angry Parents Group. But we wanted to sound like we weren't really against the system. We were just, because we so much wanted to be thought of as normal and okay, but we were concerned about a few things. And then at some point in time, someone put the old tape in my lap. Does everyone remember that on outcome-based education? And then the war was on. And we became like the old committees of correspondence during the American Revolution, because this was before the internet. So we met in small kitchens, and we all started writing, and a lot of our stuff was getting published, and it was getting passed around. And we found out concerned parents groups were popping up in just about every town. And we started reading everything we could. Some of the people who are in here today, Charlotte, I was one of your groupies. Sam, we go back. And we started to be quite effective, at least we thought at the time. And we had some successes under our belt. We replaced the school committee with our people. We implemented Phonics First policy, thanks to many of us, a commissioner that believed in us, Sam Blumenfeld, who came down several times to our town. We lobbied at the State House and helped pass the Parents' Rights Bill. We had the superintendent out of Sundance in 24 hours. We closed down the regional training center. We killed the regional dump, and we saved Plymouth County for the time being. I was appointed to the Finance Committee, and when Howie Carr was giving the Lieutenant Governor Rena's sex test on the air, we gave a serious blow to sex education. So while I was on the Finance Committee, I had the privilege, if you want to call it that, of looking at grants. And so I had you follow the money. That term always comes up. So I followed the money on just about every grant that was coming into the town and the schools at the same time. And they were all coming out of the office of the ACIR. Now, the ACIR was very, very accessible at that time. And they sent me a lot of stuff. And just about every grant was tied to regionalization. Now, it was funny because a week later I called back the ACIR and they weren't the ACIR anymore. ACIR anymore. They had changed the name. But they were the ACIR long enough for me to spread the word, start writing, start appearing on talk radio shows, start talking to legislators at the State House and about the importance of county government. And so anyway, we did some serious damage to the program, and I kicked back and hoped the Republicans got in after that. And I naively thought we could kick back. But the Lord works in mysterious ways, and so I went back to work in a relatively free academic kind of community for quite a few years until we became a radical reform district and a race to the top district. So I wanted to talk a little bit, because everybody's talking about the programs and how they work and what they do, but I want to talk a little bit about the process of how it happens, because that's a piece that most people don't talk about. So radical reform movements always start with a crisis. And the most radical reform is taking place in the urban districts because of the need. In my city, we had both an economic and an educational crisis, which started at least 20 years ago. The crisis gives the politicians and the reformers a license to change laws, contracts, and entitlement programs. We are constantly being reminded by our current mayor that he could always declare bankruptcy, which would put all deals and contracts on the table. Remember, school reform equals economic reform / regionalism. You can all view the president's website on Race to the Top to see how it all fits in. Now, our story probably didn't start here, but it probably started before my time, but there was a savings and loan crisis in the 90s, which involved the raiding of the teachers' credit union, this causing a series of failed savings and loans throughout the state. This is commonly caused an organized crime bust-out, where credit is overextended and loans are made to insiders who can't pay and default. This rather common practice has caused savings and loan failures from the Northeast through the South and Midwest. The teachers' pension fund was hit to help pay off the banks. Grant money was mismanaged, and budgets were healthy while the politicians were running for office and suddenly broke when they got in. The two previous administrations had ties to organized crime. One did time for racketeering. This may explain why the famous line, "the money is not there," has become a national mantra. Patsies and lone nuts are blamed, and taxpayers and employees pick up the tab. Pension funds are broke, and budgets are busted. Investigations are not done, and life goes on. School boards are no help in a city because they are not elected. They are appointed by the mayor and are nothing but a rubber stamp club. As the middle class moves out of the bankrupt cities, along with the factories that had supported them for so long, the small businesses follow. This leaves a large population of welfare and immigrants, and an even more diminishing tax base. Many of these immigrants have some sort of legal status, so they are receiving subsidies but are not U.S. citizens. I call them colonizers. They keep their language and customs and go back and forth to the homeland, sometimes for months at a time. Many come from war-torn nations where they haven't been to school regularly and are suffering from broken families and post-traumatic stress. It is not uncommon for me to hear my dad's back in the DR or my mom is still in Liberia. This population is transient and moves around a lot from neighborhood to neighborhood and school to school, and their phone numbers change almost as often. Subsidies often breed crime, since the only way to improve one's lifestyle is to make money in the unreported economy. The illegals are more desperate and have fewer options because they are receiving no subsidies. If you are illegal, having babies in the United States helps. We are now presented with a disappearing tax base in more ways than one, and extremely low scores on exams, as you would find in most inner city districts. We had several years where we were under correction from the federal government for low-performing schools. We had to improve our attendance and AYP scores, which include national testing. We were given the grants to improve, which included after-school programs, consultants to principals and teachers, and a fresh new superintendent who was retired Army and a graduate of the Broad Center. The Broad Center is a nationally recognized program that trains military and private CEOs to become urban school leaders. I was hired with the Goals 2000 education grants that emerged during the Clinton administration. As you know, these grants are granted for a limited time and decrease every year. At the end, the city or town is left to pick up the entire tab for the badly needed employees. This is another fiscal crisis in the making. Layoffs and bumpings followed every year, and who stayed was determined by seniority, which left all the new teachers in a constant state of fear. I was lucky. I worked my way up from constant bumping and consolidations into our test in Premier High School. Students are giving a test to see if they have math and reading skills. We present a college curriculum only, and we have an edge on the other schools in the district. We have also creamed off the top students, so the other schools have even lower scores. Needless to say, we are the highest performing school in the district. After the correction period was over, our district was ordered to transform. Each year, approximately 4 schools were cited, and they had to pick a transformation model. If your school was cited, and the administration was usually replaced, and staff is recommitted to a longer school day or not welcome back. Some turnaround models required firing 50% of the teaching staff. These were released and matriculated in one of the other schools with no explanation. During this time, teachers were required to receive further training in order to be highly qualified. During the reign of Barack Obama, there were districts that applied for the Raise to the Top money. Using Teach for America teachers is part of this deal. Now, these Teach for America teachers, they usually come in for about 2 years. A lot of their loans are relieved, and they are part of a federal a federal army of teachers, as the president has called them. With a bankrupt pension system and our low scores, we were ripe for this program. A new commissioner was brought in, a former senior policy advisor for the Department of Ed, and what you would call a heavy hitter. Over February vacation, we said our goodbyes. That Monday, every teacher and support professional was sent a certified letter saying we were all dismissed from our positions at the end of the school year. If that bullet didn't hit, 2 days later, we received another one. The commissioner said it was legal because of the economic crisis of the city. Never letting a good crisis go to waste, and a union who decided it was better to join them than be beaten hashed out a new contract. We came back to work under a whole new system, which was now fast-tracked. There was training money, new textbooks that conformed to the new testing models, and a whole new evaluation system. Seniority was now dead, and with 5 poor evaluations, you can lose your certification to teach. The pension system was altered dramatically, and we were put into different groups. Group A, Group AB, and Group B. Very similar to Social Security reform, which they're talking about now. A wasn't altered much, no COLAs, and they were going out in the next couple of years anyway, so they were happy. Group AB got hit the hardest. They lost as much as 10 years of benefits, COLAs, and topped out at a much lower rate. Group B got hit again and will not get much, and Group C knows from the onset they better make other arrangements. We were a team divided, and pension reform was a Ponzi scheme. To make matters more confusing, the state treasurer sent us all a letter saying go onto the state website, plug in your data, and find out when your retirement age is. We all did this only to learn that the website as of the last day of school had not been updated and the dates are incorrect. So no one really knows for sure. The Teach for America teachers receive 5 weeks of training over the summer and are placed into classrooms. Some do not have much content knowledge in the field, and this is the end of highly qualified. They are now the model teachers. Experienced teachers are told to watch what they do. Evaluations are to take place 4 times a year. The administration is reporting that it is taking 9 hours to do one evaluation. They are not happy either. They are also in the business now of academic leaders, so discipline isn't their number one priority. Policing teachers is. The union is now in the business of running schools, if you were wondering what happened to them, and training employees in the new evaluation systems. They're working across the street in the administration building. This summer, more schools are slated to be cited and managed by the union, and as we speak, people got letters. This was modeled in Florida. The district has adopted the workshop model as best 21st century practice. 15-minute mini lessons, 15-minute activity, and 15-minute group discussion of the activity. Anyone who is chalking and talking is being told they will not pass the evaluations. Teachers whose classrooms are in rows are told to move them. The standards must be up on the walls at all times, and 21st century language must be used in the classroom. There is always someone observing them, and they are completely demoralized and being called ineffective. I can assure you that it is not an accident that the TV in the schools are using the 15-minute rule, because this is part of programming. If you are fired from your position at any time, you cannot collect your pension until you are 67. That, of course, has been cut substantially due to the economic crisis. The evaluation system basically measures compliance to the new system. Part of the evaluation process is for an administrator to write down everything they hear said in the classroom. Ultimately, it will include the students' performance on the standardized tests. As far as the students, they are doing no better, since most of them lack basic reading and math skills. It is very difficult to move them forward. This is even more challenging when the teachers are required to keep to an established grade level curriculum. Most of the district is gang-ridden and under the influence of the hip-hop movement, which is part of the counterculture. The counterculture is almost as old as the creation of man. Often you will see the symbol of the bitten apple as part of the new system. We spend time making our students pull up their pants so we do not see their underwear. Their clothing is full of ancient occult symbols, and I suggest you view Jay-Z's clothing line, which is called Rockaware, short for Rockefeller. Once again, this is no coincidence. Their proms and dances are primarily grinding and border lap dancing. When grinding is prohibited, few show up. I have seen 10-wheeler condom trucks pull up in front of the school, complete with hip-hop music, circus tents, and people handing out condoms on the sidewalk. A gay and lesbian organization is across the street for all those who need counseling under a health grant. The teachers were required to give their students a health survey, asking them all sorts of personal questions such as, how do you have sex, anally or vaginally? Although we have some newly renovated buildings, most are old and decrepit, and we have a long ways to go to be completely online. But a lot is being piloted at this time. Athletics are very strong and are not being cut at all. There is absolutely no workforce training going on at any level. As far as I've seen, there is no anti-government curriculum going on. The students are being taught to trust government and to solve global problems. If teachers are not teaching globally, they will not get a highly proficient evaluation. This is the same information that people are getting on TV. UN stuff, environmental stuff, global economy, American interventionism, and U.S. peacekeeping. Would it make sense if it was anything else? Then it would not be programming. As far as all the experts here can tell you, mind control must be continuously reinforced. I wanted to bring to your attention that in all this discussion on school choice vouchers and some of these programs that are part of reform, what is important to see is the combining of church and state funding in many of the reform programs, such as charters, college loan programs, and vouchers. Because church, state, and partnerships with corporations are all elements of a fascist state. Now, I wanted to just take a couple of questions because I know I briefly went over a lot of things very briefly, a lot of subjects. So if anybody has a question on anything in particular, I'd be happy to elaborate on any part of this presentation.
You know, what the teacher, what are they observing? What is actually going on in the classroom? Are they observing the teacher rewarding the child? What is going on? Is it the Madeline Hunter thing, or what is the system?
Well, they're, as you pointed out, Charlotte, they're more concerned with structure because content can be changed at any time. So what they go in, they want to see the classroom laid out a certain way.
But it's behaviors more than and performance, not subject matter.
No, subject matter, well, they want to see the outcomes on the walls. They want to see the classroom layout. They want to make sure they talk to a student, make sure they know what the outcomes are, what they're expected to know and do. So often they'll talk to them with a teacher standing there. And then part of the evaluation is to go in and write down everything that is said, word for word. And then it is shown to the teacher and they sign off on it to make sure they didn't quote them inaccurately. So that's part of it. It's more of, right now, and the evaluations will expand to include testing. Right now we're in the infancy stage of evaluations. They first came in, so they're more concerned about structure and compliance to the new system. And you know, what is their favorite word? It's a living document, or it's a living, so it will adjust and change. They originally were talking about having an outside agency do it. They've totally burdened the administrations to be doing it right now. Then they talked about having retirees do it. Ultimately, it'll probably be some sort of service agency that comes in and do it because they can be a lot more rougher. You know, we have relationships with our colleagues and our bosses, and yeah, and as someone said, you know, a good principal respects a good teacher that can motivate students and control a classroom, so he may cut that teacher a little slack if they're not exactly in compliance, where an outside agency could care less.
And they're videotaping too.
Well, they haven't videotaped yet in my district, but.
Because they do in some places. Okay, thank you.
Sam.
Hey, Donna, what is the percentage of kids on Ritalin in that system?
Well, you know, I'm in a high school, so you're more aware of that in the younger grades. But minorities are more hesitant to that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, I remember meeting with a parent, and she was telling me that in the DR they do not treat like that. They treat with diet. And it was very interesting. She said that they do not serve any of their prisoners red meat, and everyone who has that disorder are taken off red meat because it makes, the adrenaline makes students aggressive. So they're not as prone to be medicated as the suburban kids, I would say. I would say not a lot. But there's the kind of medication that's going on for depression, suicidation, suicidation, that's a new term they use for students contemplating suicide. That kind of medication, students coming out of psychiatric hospitals, students going into psychiatric hospitals, that kind of medication is being used, yes.
This is just an observance, but it seems like there's a big financial incentive or solution to fail the school. They get rid of the high-cost teachers, they bring in low-wage Teach for America, they've eliminated the books, and so many inner cities are failing financially. It seems that the higher the standards that they raise, the more schools will fail.
Well, that's obvious because a Teach for America teacher is they're on step one, and they probably make about $30,000 a year, and a lot of their loans will be absolved by the government, a lot of their government loans, so they make the rest that way. But the school system isn't responsible. So if they can get rid of a $75,000 a year teacher and replace them with a Teach for America, they're saving a lot of money. And these Teach for America teachers are fairly transient. They only stay a couple of years.
Is this due to they're knowing that they're going to be using computers and the teachers are only going to be facilitators? Because what kind of a teacher could you get who after 2 years has got any sort of academic expertise to go in a classroom and teach academics?
Well, they do have college degrees. They're usually kids coming out of college. Some of them high-level colleges, such as maybe some of them in our district even come out of the Ivy Leagues. They'll do a couple of years, like being in the Peace Corps,
Yeah, but what about computers? Now, you have down in Austin, that school was turned over completely to charter school. You come to the Broad Foundation. I mean, do you have computers?
We have computers. We're just starting. We have uniformed our curriculum in some of the core subjects. The tests are now given to the teachers to give. We're starting to experiment on taking them online at some point. But, you have to realize these are poor districts. What you're envisioning costs a lot of money, and the building has to be to code new computers. So it's going to take a while to get to that point unless they bring in tons of money. I don't see that happening.
Gates and all. Nobody mentioned him, I meant to, but Gates, I know.
He has, yes. Well, he's funded some of the computers and the computer labs, but there's still not enough to have every child on a computer. Every child does not have a computer yet.
I've looked at the Teach for America website, and I can't figure out what do they teach the teachers.
We can't for 5 weeks either. It's in the summer. We don't know what they teach the teacher.
Are they actually have the ability to teach?
Well, they have okay.
My daughter was recruited by Teach for America.
Oh, good. Okay.
She was just graduating from Carnegie Mellon in pre-med. She was planning to go to medical school. So she got on the phone one day and said that I think I'm going to go with Teach for America for a couple of years. And so we immediately got on the computer to figure out what is this. A connection was made today which I did not know about, which clarified a lot about the way that when the charter school was taking over after 3 years, that they begin rotating out the existing teachers and bringing in for the Teach for America. The Teach for America are the way that they were recruiting, and apparently their biggest and most expensive aspect of the program is the recruiting arm. They go to the more prestigious schools, and from what I understood, they focus on the more affluent students, the top of the class, the ones that are a little bit better off, and they push the thing that this is a very affluent program. This would be really good on your resume. This is a good career-building move. And so we would like you to consider doing this for 2 years, and we'll put you, whether or not it's in a inner-city school in Washington, D.C., or somewhere else around the world, because it's a global program. And we looked into the 6 weeks. It's just nothing. It's basically just crowd control, from what I can understand. It has nothing to do with teaching ability. They're just looking for graduates of these institutions for prestige.
Well, they have a different way of teaching too. If you look up 21st century is the buzzword. Look that up. You look up 21st century projects. They're young, so they are very text oriented.
It's all Skinner, that Carnegie thing. I've got the book, Teachers for the 21st Century. That's Carnegie Corporation. It's all Skinner. But you haven't seen that? Have you seen the behavior modification going on?
Well, I've had some of it when I've gone for training and they're popping chocolates. And I didn't get one and I was not happy and someone...
When I found the Carnegie prepared, Lee Schulman's project out of Stanford, he became the head of the Carnegie Foundation for Advancement of Teaching after Boyer died. He was responsible for the Chicago Mastery Learning disaster when half the inner city kids dropped out. They kept promoting it. But he did the Carnegie Teachers Prepared for the 21st Century, Schulman. And he's all involved with Bloom, Skinner, Pavlov, the whole thing. So my feeling is these teachers must be being conditioned. This training is not real teacher training. It's conditioning. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
It's all conditioning. It's all...
You've been in it so long, you know that's the name of the game.
All I know is when I didn't get that chocolate, sitting there for an hour, I didn't like it. Because we're getting trained too, so,
Yeah.
Polly.
They've already dumbed down your school population.
Yeah.
They're already there. Suburban kids are the threat to them now. So you've got to get the computers into the more elite suburban schools in order to really bring them down so that everybody on a level field.
I don't know about that, Paul, because my kids went to a suburban, well, I already told you about that story, and they were pretty dumbed down, so I don't know, I can't blame it on, and
Have families
yes, they have more intact.
and community, and that has to be destroyed. There can't be an allegiance and friendships that you hold tight to and that support you. And I see a lot of that being broken down, walking around with the cell phones and
Oh, yeah.
emotions don't come through on cell phones, and a lot of misunderstandings and mistrust is generated.
Well, the cell phones have presented a monumental problem in every classroom and across all districts, and it creates I call it Lord of the Flies. It creates a whole child world without parents, and it goes on 24 hours.
They allow them in the classroom?
Well, they could text, they put them in their purse. One mother came in, I said, a teacher says she suspects she's testing, and the father checked out, she got 4,000 texts in 1 month during school hours. We'd like to see the cell towers go down, quite frankly, because we can't, and as parents, I can tell you that it does separate a child from their family. Intense, more than anything else that could be done. That has done it. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for having me.